So today we're going to work on making a provisional cast on with a crochet hook. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to make a slip knot. And then we're going to use our needles and bring the crochet hook in front of the knitting needle. And we're going to wrap the yarn around the crochet hook and the knitting needle. And we're going to bring that yarn through the stitch. Okay, and then we're going to just repeat that. We're going to leave the hook in front of the knitting needle, wrap around, around the needle and that hook, and bring that yarn through the stitch. Okay, so let's say our pattern is telling us to provisionally cast on, provisionally cast on 10 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, and we're just going to keep going until we've got 10 stitches on the needle. And then when you've got all the stitches you need, it's a really good idea to just make a couple more chains on just the hook though. A couple more chains. And then we'll snip that yarn, pull it through a bit, and there is your provisional cast on. And we would continue knitting with whatever yarn you're supposed to use in your pattern. And then at the end, your pattern would tell you to remove the provisional cast on. Now, to remove the provisional cast on, what you can do, you can just pull this tail here and pull out the provisional cast on chain, and what you'll be left with are live stitches. And if you're worried about having live stitches just kind of hanging out without a needle through it, you can also put your needle through these stitches first and then unravel that chain. So let me show you though what happens when you undo this chain. When you undo that, you'll see there's a live stitch right there. Right? So, like I said, you can pull the chain before, you can do it after. I'm just going to put a spare needle through these stitches. That way we don't have to worry about unraveling the chain and losing any stitches or anything like that. Okay, so I've got 10 of the stitches on my spare needle. Now we can just continue to pull out this provisional cast on chain, just like that. And we've got stitches on the spare needle and, you know, the working end where we were knitting our work. And that's how you remove the provisional cast on and transfer those stitches to a needle. And one of the reasons your pattern might tell you to do that is because you're going to then make a folded hem. In which case, those stitches that you just transferred to your spare needle, you're going to fold to the back so that your wrong sides are together. Let me get this tail out of the way. And to close this hem, we're going to insert the right needle through the first stitch on the first needle, the first stitch on the second needle, and knit those 2 stitches together. And repeat that all the way across. For right needle through the first stitch on the first needle, the first stitch on the second needle, knit those 2 together, and continue across. And now you've just closed your hem. You've made a folded hem. These types of hems are really nice and stretchy. And you can continue now just working on your pattern upwards. And that's it. Let's go over how to bind off with a folded hem. So I have this small swatch here, and let's say I've knit in my pattern, and now I want a folded hem on this side. I've got one down here. There's another video for that I showed previously. And we've knit a bit, and now we want to end with a folded hem. So what we're going to want to do is on the back of your work, where you want the fold to be secured to the work and close the folded hem, you're going to just drop down this column down to where the first stitch is. And for ease of this video, I've used some contrasting yarn here, but let's say this folded hem is going to be 1 inch. And so I've knit 2 inches, a fold in half, so that way my hem is 1 inch. I'm going to follow this first stitch, the whole column, all the way down, and I'm going to find the purl bump of that first stitch. And I'm going to knit the 2 stitches together and leave this stitch on my right hand needle for now, because we're going to use it for binding off. And then the second stitch, I'm going to follow right along the next purl bump right here. Knit those 2 together. And then, because we are binding off, we're just going to lift the second stitch over the first, and we've bound off 1 stitch. Now we're looking for the next purl bump all the way down. We're going to knit those 2 together. Then we're going to pass the second stitch over the first to bind off. Look for the next purl bump all the way down that column. We're going to knit those 2 stitches together and then pass that second stitch over the first to bind off. We're going to just keep doing that all the way across, and we'll end up with a folded hem that we won't need to sew down with a tapestry needle. We're just going to bind off. Can you see that? The piece is starting to curl a bit on the edges because I just did plain stockinette. But we're just going to follow the column all the way down to the stitch that's in the place where we want to close this hem. Let's see if I can find one here that isn't all curled up. And then the last stitch, we're just going to pull a tail through here. Okay, so now we've got our folded hem. We've bound off along the way, and that's it.